Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Mollie Carmichael with Zonda's Inspirational Leadership Series, joined by the industry's best in all things real estate. These leaders are literally designing our future for many generations to come with new communities, home designs, technology, retail centers, infrastructure, and so much more. This series is about who they are, how they got started, who inspired them, and their journey to the top. So let's get started. Hello, and thanks again for joining us today. We are here with Mike Forsum, the Chief Operating Officer for Landsea Homes Corporation. Just a little bit about Mike before we get started. He grew up in the business. His father was a home builder, and he also has 30 years of home building experience following working with his dad. He's worked for several builders like Taylor Morrison, KB Home, and also co-founded Starwood Land Ventures in 2008. I don't think he could have hit that timing better. That was an affiliated company of Starwood Capital Group Global. Mike then joined Landsea in 2016, and shortly after this young company started in 2013, the company has done phenomenally well. The company recently just went public in 2021 and exceeded $1 billion in revenue by year end. The company is now one of the newest and fastest growing companies in the nation. Mike, John Ho, the entire management team, they've really built a great company from the ground up, and they've been instrumental in shaping the company's culture, vision, their core values. And on a final note, I believe Lancy Homes has some of the best and most innovative home designs out there. So let's get started. We're going to hear a lot more from Mike about his career, his life, and what it takes to be an inspirational leadership today. So please join me in welcoming Mike Forsum. Thank you for joining us today. We are here with Mike Forsum. He's the Chief Operating Officer for Landsea Homes. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mollie. This is a great honor to be on your podcast. I'm thrilled to be here. And I was thinking about when you asked me to do this, how long I've kind of been circling your orbit. I think I go back to your days at the Irvine Company when you were helping to peddle those super expensive watts to Taylor Morrison at the time. I think you're part of that. And you did a fine job, and I always was impressed by that because we kept buying them. So you're very effective.
That's good. That's good. That's what the Irvine Company likes, as you well know, Mike. Well, I know it's been a while, and it's interesting what a small business and industry this is, right? I mean, I could be in Sacramento or Boston, and it's amazing how you run into people.
Well, I think it's age, Mollie. I mean, the longer we're here, the more people we get to know, and if we're able to be blessed enough to be in this industry as long as at least I have been, the pool starts to shrink. So you know a lot more people.
I totally agree, and you know what? It's like an extended family, really.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
It really is. Well, let's talk a little bit about you. We're going to talk a lot about you, actually.
Okay.
So as the Chief Operating Officer of Landsea Homes, what do you do? What do you do every day? I mean, what does it take to be a COO?
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to figure that out a little bit. So thanks for giving me the tough question right from the get-go.
Of course.
My job in the role that I'm playing for Lancy Homes is to oversee all of really our home building operations and all facets that come along with it. I work with we call each other partners, or CEO, John Ho.
John's a great guy. I love John.
Yeah, just an amazing human being. And we've been at this for it's my 6th year here. John's been at 8. And we've gone from, I think when I got here, about 30 employees. We have about 750 now. And we're a publicly traded company, and we're coast to coast. And so, our job has changed a lot over that time. So really together, as I said, run through the home building operations, while John really takes care of the board and really focuses in on the capital markets and talking with our investors. I do that from time to time. And then together, really, we set strategy, culture, kind of where we want to go, where we think what we want to do with this company going into the future. And so really, we kind of run it together. It's great.
That's awesome. What do you love most about your job?
Well, I think I just love the diversity of what we do for a living. I mean, this is a really
I agree.
interesting profession. And I tell people, it's so unique in the sense that we touch all aspects and all facets of life. I mean, when we're putting a deal together, we have to understand schools, we have to understand air quality, we have to understand water quality, we have to be geotechnical scientists, we have to be structural engineers, we have to be artists, we have to understand architecture, we have to understand design, we have to understand politics and how to navigate those waters. And so, all those things. And I just, I've thought about this a lot during my career, and I don't know very many businesses that offer that. And I just think it's just so fascinating. Every deal is different. Every city is different. Every state is different. Everybody that you deal with is somewhat unique. And so it's just really the diversity of what we do in the pieces that we have to stitch together, the people that we have to orchestrate to kind of get them aligned to go forward in the same direction, to come out with this thing that we love and do is building communities and developing communities and building homes. I love it.
It's really funny, but I think it took me about 20 years of my career to realize that we are actually in the business of land and people, and the house is just the accessory, right? I mean, the house is important, don't get me wrong, but the land portion of it is so much more difficult. And then the people side of it, both the people you're working with, but also the people you're building homes for those are the most important ingredients of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's again going back to this amazing job that I have lucked into, because someone like me should never be this fortunate. But it's incredible that I get to sit here and talk to you about it and be a part of this industry and seeing the things I've been able to see. But it is different in the sense of what creates value in what we do. And it is different in different locations. And I talk about California, where really the home building process, the actual home itself is really, it's probably not the right way to say it, but it's really it's a necessary evil that has to be created. Probably I shouldn't have said it that way, but it's used to extract out the value of the land, because the land is really where the value creation comes from in the state of California. If you're in Texas, or if you're in Florida and you're in Arizona, like we are in different places where land is a little bit less constrained and it's a little less regulated, and you can kind of get through that process a little better, and there's more developers and there's just more supply of lots. The home building side of it becomes so much more important, because that's your real differentiator. That's really where you make your trade or your business, your money. And so you have to be really, really good at that. You have to really, really understand, how a home is built and who you're building it for, because you're under intense competition in that regard. So, you get both sides of it going back and forth. And of course, we've got New York and San Francisco, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. So it's.
I think that's what your team at Taylor Morrison, and certainly here at Landsea, has always done so well and does so well. You guys it's that design side that can make a difference between 15 to 20% in value in the home. There are builders out there that just completely miss that. And so you've always seemed to lead a team that does that, which is great.
I think, I've always felt that way. The people that have been around me and that have worked with me over the years sort of feel that way, is that we don't really believe that you have to compromise those core elements out of a house by making things more attainable, making a home more approachable. You don't need to cheapen quality or the value proposition out of what you're trying to present if you're thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
You really drive, design, and that you have people that are pretty passionate around those concepts of what we're trying to do. It's not a rote process. We talk a lot about it internally, that we're leaving our mark on earth. This is another really unbelievable thing we do.
I love this part. I totally agree with what you're about to say.
And I can get kind of misty-eyed talking about it, and I'm sure I embarrass our teams when I get off on this tangent. But really, I can go back after 35 years of being in this business and look at homes that we built in communities, I don't know, throughout California, and to see what we did. Did we do it right? Did we further the enhancement of the community in which we operated in, or did we do poorly? Did we short the mark? Did we compromise? And you're building homes that are neighborhoods that don't sustain themselves over time. I'd much rather be in the former rather than the later. And if you really think about that, and it doesn't take a whole lot more to do that. It just really isn't that hard or that difficult to meet that challenge if you're thoughtful about the things that matter. And so anyhow, I have it in my family as well. This is another thing I do to embarrass my team, is always start off. I'm a third generation Swedish carpenter. And
that's awesome.
Well, my grandfather on my father's side was a builder in LA, and he built duplexes and triplexes and fourplexes throughout the San Gabriel Valley. And
super cool.
I remember being young and seeing what he did and the work that he had accomplished and how proud he was, and in the life that he gave me. He had immigrated from Sweden with my father. My father, just kind of going through, but he was the chief designer for Ross Cortese and Rossmore Leisure World, and so in the Laguna Niguel, Rossmore. So that's how we got to Southern California, was that he was running Leisure World basically in Laguna Hills.
That's huge.
So if you think about the legacy that he left on this planet, which is now I think called Laguna Woods. I think he even changed the name, but and so you live with that and in that, and you start to think about again, what's my calling and what do I want to do? That's a pretty cool thing to reflect upon, and you probably don't consciously know it, but you definitely feel it inside you. So you can kind of carry that with you.
Oh, for sure. Well, so we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to go back to the young Mike Forsum. I always like to pick, I don't know why I picked the age 8, but I do. Well, so going back, so you have a father who's a builder and he's a developer and that kind of stuff, but you've got your own stuff. Like, what did you want to be when you were a young kid?
Oh, I wanted to be a professional athlete of any kind at that point. I was convinced I was going to be a professional basketball player or a baseball player or football player. And I just loved playing sports growing up. And is the dogs bothering you? I could
not at all. Nope. Okay, nope. Everybody's got a dog. I've got 3. Nope. No big deal. Keep them barking. We've all got it. No big deal.
Yeah. So I loved playing sports, team sports specifically. I mean, I had an idea.
What did you play? So you played basketball?
Yeah, I actually all the way through high school, all 4 years, I was on football team, basketball team, baseball, and then I actually pole vaulted a little bit in track as well. And nice. One of the things and then I played my freshman year of college football. So clearly I didn't have a future in it, but I was telling one of my buddies the other day, I said, I think I went all the way to like my mid-40s when I woke up one day and just realized I'm probably not going to be a professional athlete at something. I had to give up the dream. The big dream was always with me for an extended period of time, but I just, my father was, an immigrant, and there's a level of expectation that the family participates in work and helping out.
I was one of those people with my family.
Yeah. So he instilled a very strong work ethic in us. And so if you weren't playing a sport, which in his mind was, I guess you're American, you should do that, right? That's kind of makes some sense. Sure. But anything else is just waste of time, and you should be helping out him doing whatever project he had going on or something. And so that was part of the reason why I did everything, because I always could tell him I had practice or I had a game or something coming up. And so it got me out of a lot of work. That's basically, and I'd much rather go to a practice than have to go to work with him, because he was a much tougher coach than I could ever have on the field. So it was like one of those deals.
Well, I have a theory though. I think some of the best employees have played team sports. and it really just is learning to be on a team and work together and play hard and win and all the things that go with that. And frankly, even learning how to lose to some degree
Right.
is, those are kind of key qualities of a great employee, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I use that analogy all the time. And I don't know if it's lost on people or not, but it's my frame of reference. And I consistently talk about us being on a team together, that we have positions to play. The roles are different, but together, we are better than apart, and that we all have to work sort of in harmony with one another in terms of knowing what we need to do, right? And
Totally.
so the best thing is that I want to be, I always wanted to be on a high performing team, a winning team, and I also wanted to be a very valued member on that winning team. And that was sort of like the level of expectation. You don't want to participate on a team that loses every week. You know that you're going to have your challenges, and that maybe you're not going to win every week. But the idea of that being on that team that's again high performing, excels, and that you're a real meaningful value add participant in that team and doing your job and doing it well, it's great. Not everybody can be the quarterback, not everybody can be the star receiver.
Totally.
But collectively, just being the best at what you're doing in that job is really cool when it all kind of harmonizes together and you're making it happen.
Well, tell me, what's the biggest thing, if you had one takeaway from working with your dad, what was the number one thing he taught you?
He was very exacting in terms of doing the work right and doing it right the first time, and quality, and what really that looks like, and really what you have to do to get it, and then not being satisfied coming up short of the mark. He was an incredibly hard worker. He's very detail oriented, and he was relentless in terms of just getting it done that way. And so I've always deeply appreciated that is something that he gave me. There's some things he gave me that I don't like, but most of it served me well in this industry, and so that's been really good.
What are the top qualities you look for in a leader?
Again, in our business being as diverse as it is, leadership comes in different ways. And I think that it's a little bit of just more about the sort of softer stuff. Do you have the character, or do you have the, you got to have the aptitude, there's just sort of those basics, right? I mean, you just kind of the blocking, tackling, kind of be where you are. But, the reality is that, do you have that sense of sort of, being able to be approachable in the way that you are to get the best out of people that you have to lead is really the main thing. And so I usually look like there's 3 different steps that I kind of say is sort of how you evolve in your career. Is that, if you're highly effective when you're younger, you're usually given a task and you're really good at getting that done. You do it yourself and you're just amazing, right? Mm-hmm. But the next big leap is, and it's a big separator, huge, is can you get others to do that job as well as you were doing, right? I mean, you have to basically be able to leverage yourself out, and you have to do it with people who are different than you, right? And they have different ways and styles and those kinds of things. And, you have to be able to have a sense of confidence to let some of those roam free to kind of get to the spot that they need to get to. It may not be the way you would do it, but you're kind of moving them in that direction. And so to be an evolved leader like that, to have that kind of capacity, I think is something that is very unique, and you kind of look for that because it's just not that linear. And then the big next step, and this is such a generalization, is can you be a strategic thinker? And I think that is, that's the big step, that ultimately gets people to that sort of, whatever that is, that's sort of at that higher level, and you kind of move up. But, that's kind of what it is. So when I think about leadership, it's just, can you move people in the same direction and execute at a level that you did when you were doing that job yourself, and that's kind of where it goes. And then, the strategic thinking part is, from the next side of the leadership, is that, can you get people to buy into that vision? Because kind of say, like, look, if you've got a ship out in the ocean, open water, And it's a really seaworthy vessel, and you have a crew, and they are all competent in doing what you're asking them to do, whether it's tending a sail or whatever is on the ship. You know, as a captain, you got to sail somewhere, right? And you got to be able to convince everybody that where you're sailing is in the right direction, because they can't see it. It's over the horizon. It's someplace that's out there. And, you're going to have moments where you're in stormy seas, or you're just floating, going nowhere. And you're going to have to still be able to convince people that this is where we're going to go win it. Stay with me, stay focused, do your job, trust me, I'm going to get you there, right? Because otherwise, if we just sit here, we're going to die, right? We got to go. And so I think that's part of it too, and that's a very unique person to be able to do that, in my opinion. They're very few and far between.
Those are good answers. I like it. That's awesome. Well, so tell me your favorite pastime. What do you love to do if you're not doing this?
I really, I'm very, I love my buddies dearly. And so if we get a chance to kind of go off and, get a little boys trip together to watch a football game somewhere, or go watch the Final Four, that's probably, we've been doing that for decades now together. They're my friends literally from elementary school. And so they're really precious to me. And so I probably, if I think about that outside of my own family and my grandchildren and my children, being able to do those kinds of fun little trips with them now that have gotten really boring, where we now, end up pretty early at night. And I think we even go home and have tea and maybe a little cookie, and we watch some ESPN or something like that. So it's very, very low key.
Sounds great to me. Awesome.
It is. We love it. So, that's mostly what I do from pastime. Love to read. If there's something good going on from a book standpoint, just kind of getting my head out of all this data and stuff that we look at constantly, and escape a little bit from that, but and just spend time with my wife. So it's what I do.
Now I'm going to do quick word association with you. So what's the first word that comes to mind when I say quality?
Non-negotiable.
I like that. People.
Indispensable.
That's true. Home building.
Noble.
I agree. Good answer. Affordable.
Relative.
It's true. So what do you do about affordability today?
If you've kind of been raised up in the California market, I think you probably have more skills around this area, because you don't really have those kinds of alternatives to move out, right? We're just sort of supply constrained or land constrained. We've got regulations. We also have a lot of sort of physical features, bays, water, hills, things like that, to kind of sort of make you have to kind of figure it out. And I think that we've done a good job here in California, and I like to think of us as a company, and kind of what we're now doing in Arizona, is you are solving for that affordability problem by densification of your product, essentially, or your community. You're learning how to be more efficient on that parcel of land, and creating different homes products, however we want to phrase it, that still give the sense of that this is my home, this is my space, this is my castle. But at the same time, there are some compromises that are being made in terms of how you're living in that area, or certainly within that lot or in that community. And you're making that trade-off. And the trade-off is, I'm not driving an hour, maybe I'm driving 20 minutes. I'm there's just certain things that are there. And I think that the builders that are most thoughtful around that can sort of make those two things kind of come together in that kind of situation. And frankly, you go back to the Irvine company that challenged density. If you were in the Bay Area, where I really spent most of my early career, to get projects approved, you really had to get the yield up, and you had to think about how you could, I'm going to call it sort of densify your product without, again, compromising it and making it an unlivable home, just because you can get 13 to an acre versus 4. It was just sort of,
Agreed.
And you really had to work on that, and you really had to be thoughtful about it in every respect.
Well, and I think the toughest conditions oftentimes are where inventions are made, right?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, it forces you to actually create something better,
Right.
for
Right.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. No, I think that's brilliant. So tell me this, how did you, was there a turning point in your career when you, let's say, for example, when you became president for the first time of a division, was
Mhm.
there a turning point that got you there that you're like, that's it?
Uh, no.
What about so
I
tell
mean,
me about the first company you became president for and anything around that.
yeah, so I was in a really unique position. I was very young, but I uh, had the opportunity to work up in the Bay Area with KB. KB was a much smaller company then. In fact, at that time, there's only 3 divisions in the state of California, and it was Northern California. There was the Orange County division, which Larry, was part of.
Hmm.
San Diego, and then they had a startup division in the Bay Area, and that was with Roger Menard, and that's
Yeah.
where it really got going. And Roger was had his own unique style of leadership. It was basically, I'm going to give you enough rope until you can hang yourself, or however the phrase goes. And it was like, hey, so mine was mostly about, I really, for me personally, love the independence and authority that he gave me. Uh, And what drove me was I didn't want to lose it. Like I didn't want to let him down or let the company down, because I was so coveted of having that kind of authority, responsibility, and to be able to go out there, with the job that I had to do, whether it was in a city or dealing with trades or what have you. I always felt like I came there with the position of authority that was given to me by him, and I didn't want it taken away. So, that was what drove me early to some early successes. And so they ended up making me a division president in Fresno. They wanted to open up in Central Valley. I was 29, almost turning 30. I was 29. And what was a real motivator at that time was that I was married and I had 3 young children. And so I couldn't flub that up. I mean, because I don't want to
Yeah.
get, cast aside, there. And so,
That's really young to become a division president too.
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah,
spectacular.
yeah. So, and, back then, and then shortly thereafter, they asked me to go to Arizona and open up the Arizona office, which I did right after Jay Moss started the operations in Vegas. We were the 2 first divisions outside of the state of California for KB. A little bit of another connection is Jeff Metzger replaced me in Arizona when I left to go to Ryland. So, I mean, it just
Oh,
shows.
interesting. Nice.
Yeah. So I've every time I see Jeff, I told him he owes me a lot of money for accelerating his career to the top.
That's
Uh,
right. That's
so
right.
otherwise, he would have been banished off in Palmdale, Lancaster, where he was at the time. I don't think he could get out of there. But so I think that generally, back then in those days, the training for division president was they gave you a telephone book and a number 2 pencil and said, "Best of luck to you." And it's just, if you had ingenuity and desire, and I probably a healthy sense of fear of failure, and that's kind of what it was. So I kind of laughed when you asked about it, because there wasn't really a whole lot of direction in terms of what I was prepared. You just had to learn on the fly. You just had to kind of get in there. You had to lean into the opportunity, and you had to kind of figure your way through it all. And as a very young person, you had to convince people, and people that were much older than me, that I could get this done, and that again,
Sure.
follow me, that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what it is. There's no trade-off for experience. There's no trade-off in terms of uh, having that kind of experience. And what I always say too is that what I loved about our business, which I'm going to call sort of high volume production home building, that kind of is you just get a lot of at bats. And it's just like, that's why I say, get as many at bats as you possibly can, as young as you possibly can, because every experience is unique. Everything is different. Every challenge is new. And so you want to get those early, because that makes you better later on, as opposed to being very kind of one-dimensional, linear, through the process. And so, from that standpoint, that's kind of my philosophy, is just, get as many at-bats as you possibly can early, take on as many assignments as you can, and every community, look for the volume. And that's a great way to play. That's a great way to grow.
Do you think your upbringing with your father working in the business too as a young person had a part of that too, though? I mean,
Oh, for
realistically,
sure.
you've been training since how old, right? I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
you've been a
There's no doubt.
manager in training since probably a young child for
Yeah.
the most part.
Yeah, no, there's just no question about it. And I'm very lucky and fortunate to have had, those experiences early on as a child for a builder, basically, because it made me, one, super appreciate trades and how hard they work for us and how important they are, and the relationship as stakeholders. And this is something we drive all the time through our businesses, that they're not the enemy, they're our partners.
Oh, totally.
We need them desperately, and we consider them family. And so, from that standpoint, just the sort of ability to approach them and to speak with them and to understand, I think, what motivates them, and then just having just a deep appreciation for what they do. I mean, they're small business people for the most part, but they're
Sure.
providing livings for many people. They're taking big risks, and they're trusting us in many respects. But if we deliver on our end, they'll move heaven and earth for you, because they're the most hardworking, dedicated, loyal people on the planet for the most part. And I treasure them. And I think that was what I had probably ahead of others, was just sort of being able to have that connection, that ability to speak their speak, and to just relate to them and connect with them. And it was authentic. It wasn't something contrived. It wasn't, I didn't go to a seminar. I didn't, it's just like, these are my people. And I think they felt like I was part of them too.
I agree. My guess is you probably have done every role in a home builder too, growing up in that business too, right? So you've swung a hammer, you've done a lot of that stuff too, because that's just what it takes when you're doing that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, if you don't, I mean, this is a physical business. There's no getting around it. I mean, if you're not somebody who's at least experienced some blisters on your hands, or splinters in your fingers, or aches in your bones from a hard day's worth of work, or my skin coloring being burnt to a crisp because you've been outside all day. And that's the nature of our business. That's what we do. We build stuff. We build it outside. We build it with other people in many different parts, and it's under different kinds of conditions. And so I think, you have to kind of understand that and appreciate it, or have people around you that really do, that can speak to that.
That's probably my favorite part of the job. Oh, that's awesome. What do you love most about your job?
I love so many things about it, and and it's different, because it's like, what do I love about my job today versus what did I love my job, earlier. But
Sure.
I mean, I can't believe I get to talk to you. I mean, and you're listening, you're actually interested, in what I have to say, I think. But I think it's just, it's like I said earlier, it's just this multifaceted, many parts, things that are in direct conflict together, that you have to bring back in sort of harmony, as I said earlier. And just figuring out that puzzle,
Yeah.
and dealing with people that may or may not be, in sync with you, but you got to get them there. And then there are a lot of people that are in sync with you, and you got to lead them there and get them the tools and resources that they need to be, effective and successful. And, it's just a business that just has so much to it. And if you like that, if you really like stitching those things together, and making it all work, I kind of feel like, they used to say back in the day, like, the home building business is like the car business. And it's like, but I always feel like, it's like the movie business. And it's kind of, you get a script, right? And you're the producer, and you've got the script. And so you have to bring in all of these things to make this movie. A director, your actors are your salespeople, you have your behind the scenes grips and lighting people, which are your construction people. And you're trying to kind of produce this thing of emotion, right? That's going to move people, that's going to delight them, that's going to do all these things that are going to be wonderful, right? Because you want them to come in mass, right? And to see what you've created. But then you know what? The show's over, right? And you got to go do another one. And because you've built through the community, you're done with your models, and you're off to kind of your next script. And it's like, to me, like that is such an exciting, I guess, like, I feel like I don't, really know what a producer does, but if a producer is what I think it is, this is kind of what this job is. And it's fascinating.
That's a really good point. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of like your babies too when you leave them. It's hard to leave them, right? But it's neat to see them, when they're all grown up too.
Yeah. Well, we have little celebrations when, the last house closes in the community, because I don't think that ever should be something that just sort of casually is done, because the work, the effort, the thought, the emotion, the passion, the things you had to do to literally get a community from, buying it to finishing it at the end, and all the years in between, and the blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah, it shouldn't go away easily. Like it's just something that happens, because it doesn't. It is really, really hard what we do. Right.
Well, so let me ask you this. So pretend as a good friend coming to you, and he or she says to you, should I buy a home today? What would you say?
Absolutely.
Why?
That, I think, because it's always, a home is always something to me, and I'm not going to use the word investment, but is central to your sense of well-being, in terms of, I have my stake, and I have my claim, I have my piece of the rock, I have a thing that's going to give me stability and safety and peace of mind. It's tangible, it's real, it connects you to so many other things. I just think owning a home is the most important thing you can do. And
I agree.
When I say that, I also mean it's not about speculation. It's not about, even the words investment, because Mollie, you and I have been doing this. I've been doing longer than you, but you've been doing it for a while. And, it's ups and downs, right? And if you're buying this for, I'm going to buy at the top or sell at the top, buy at the low, do all this, then, you're always going to be frustrated and disappointed and things, because your motivations aren't what this is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I think that, today, again, they may be the best time to buy, because it's not frenzied. It's not crazy. You're not up against people who are irrational and approaching the business, or, approaching the next release with just, I'm going to jump in there and get whatever I can get. I think today, we're sort of back to a point where you can be thoughtful about your floor plan that you want, what lot you're going to be on, the community, all the things that I think are very important in your decision making, and that it gives the best builders really a leg up, because this is now starting to kind of shine through again, right? It's like what we want to believe in, what we're telling our teams is like, this is a great time for us, because we believe that we have the most compelling value proposition that's out there, by virtue of these attributes that we've put into our home. And when the market's going nutty, no one, are we really getting anything for that? No. But when the market's slowing down, or it's getting more thoughtful in terms of the approach, then we should shine. We should be able to stand out. So I think it's a great time to buy a house.
Well, so on that note, we'll throw a little competitive spirit into this one. So you've worked for some great builders, right?
Yeah.
So KB Home, Taylor Morrison, Ryland.
Right.
Why would you tell them to buy a Landsea home? Why Landsea?
Well, I probably won't get this opportunity to tell them, but I think because right now, by virtue of my experiences at all those home builders, which I would say are all great home builders, and maybe Ryland's no longer with us, but Cheryl and Taylor, they're still fantastic home builders. I really admire them. I respect them. And I'm not just saying this because you're supposed to say it. I really do. I really think that they do an excellent job. Yeah, and Cheryl has done amazing things with that company, and she's, seen the lows, and she fought her way through. Talk about perseverance and grit. There's a great example of that, of something that she came into, and then when it got spun off, and then, what she had to do to kind of moved that company through that period in time to what it is today. It's an incredible story. It really, really is. And, and Jeff and what he's done there, and, how he's taken over what was, kind of a listing ship, and, and done what he's done. So, I mean, I think all those companies are great, and Ryland was great. But I think really what is happening today at Landsea is that by virtue of those experiences and in being in private equity with Starwood Capital, you're getting the best of Mike Forsum, the best that I ever am and ever was right at this moment, right? So I think that this is a industry that does reward experience. It is real estate in general, having experience and having gone through stages and phases and themes and whatever kind of runs through it. You are incrementally just getting better. You're adding more value to yourself. You don't become obsolete per se. I don't think you do. I think you become more of a more highly valued individual, because you can add so much more to the conversation and give so much more perspective to it. And that's why, I love this business too, because you don't really age out per se in some of the maybe more other industries that are there. You should be able to always get better by virtue of being in this industry and being a part of it, and an active part of it, and being engaged.
Okay, so as we're wrapping up, I've got a couple of final questions for you.
Okay.
Who inspired you? Who were your kind of leaders growing up, both personally and professionally?
I mean, growing like age 8, are we back to age 8 again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you should have to pick one from when you were a kid and then one as an adult. I think that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. I think that as a child, I was very fortunate. I have my best friend to this day, even his father was a huge inspiration to me. I don't even know if he knows it, actually, to tell you the truth. He's 92 now, and so I'll probably get a little emotional thinking about it. But so he was real estate back then. Whatever that was, I don't know, but I knew he was successful. But he, despite the fact of I think his success and his wealth, was the most generous, thoughtful human being I'd ever ran across. And still to this day, I tried to pattern myself after him. He was the type of person who always met you where you were at as a young person. Would ask you questions about yourself, at least seemed interested, was there, was present, and always engaging of people, but not necessarily all had to be the same people. I mean, we're athletes, but you could be a skateboarder in his house, you could be a surfer, you could be, whoever you were. He was just an incredibly approachable, thoughtful, decent human being, and he was an adult. He was a male figure, and he was unbelievably generous too. And I thought, I think that's what I want to be. When I grow up, and because I just never really met a man like that before, and so I cherish him more than anything.
Nice. I see a lot of those qualities in you for sure. So you listened well. That's great. Now, what about as an adult? So fast forward as an adult.
A person. Are we back to a person again? Like professional person or some?
It could be your next door neighbor. Anywhere.
It's interesting, Molly. I don't know why I'm struggling with this question, because again, I am surrounded by unbelievable human beings. I'm so lucky, and I get to go in and out of different situations whereby I meet the most fascinating, interesting, inspiring people, and that I just walk away from damn, what am I doing with my life? Why can't I be like that?
I feel about these interviews. Every time I talk to them, I'm like, oh my God.
And they're just remarkable to me. And and so it's like really just mostly about just bits and pieces of those people that, I really want to kind of gather and sort of put them together to kind of say, okay, this is somebody. And I feel hard about saying this because I if anybody ever listens, because I know you've got this huge following, they may say, why didn't you pick me? It's like, why wasn't I that person? But I just, I clearly adore my wife. She's my heart and soul. She's been this partner with me.
That's a great one. You know what?
Yeah.
That's about the best answer I've been given so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's your partner, right? So she goes through this journey with you, or he, whatever it is. And I think that you don't, you only go as far as that person that's next to you. And so from that standpoint, for all that she's done, put up with, had to persevere through, and all that, the places I've taken her and the things we've done. I'm her biggest fan. I admire her the most.
Well, that makes me teary. That kind of choked you up a little bit there, didn't it? I mean, that's, you know what? It sounds like you have one hell of a partner.
So she's great, but I love her to pieces, and then I've had some really other, great, great people to work with, whether it's Bruce Carrots or Chad Dreyer, God bless him, and John Peshkin, who's at Pulte now on the board, and probably one of the smartest human beings I've ever come across. But they're all different. They all had different personalities, and Bruce trusted me. Chad drove me, and John enlightened me. They're all different, and I've had great partners. Mike Mosier at Starwood Capital, we were partners together. He's just a phenomenal guy in terms of just really knows his shit and works super hard, and knows his stuff, and he's just relentless, in the pursuit of that. And so I've always admired him for that. And then I have just great people around me that continue to trust and believe in me, and I'm thankful for them.
So and I'm still in awe of the wife. That's awesome. So if you were to pick 2 to 3 qualities of these people that you admire so much, what would quality of a leader be?
I think humility, for sure.
For sure.
I think humility. I think selflessness. It's just sort of the sense of, you have to have I think to be a good leader, you do have to have a servant attitude to some degree. So I think that's just these, selfless people that continually to amaze me, that they're willing to, despite almost no gain or any notoriety or whatever it is, show up and do their thing every single day for you. It's mind-boggling to me. So from that standpoint, I think that's part, too. And then I think just, again, I kind of go back to sort of perseverance or grit, or because life is just, our work, it's a grind, right? It's a, but it could be a beautiful grind, at the end of the day. It's really about the journey and sort of going through the crucible together, and whether it's through your marriage or it's through your teams or building a company or sustaining a family. It's like, look, it's just about that journey and that grind and that thing that you're going through together that reveals things, but also just bonds you together, that I think are really super cool stuff. So
I do too. And it's the perseverance and the willingness to kind of fight for it every day and fight hard.
Yep.
I like it.
Yep. So yeah, if you're that type of person, you're probably doing it through relationships. You're doing it with your children, because they'll make you have to persevere. And then you're doing it at work, and you're doing it together. So, that's kind of how I look at it. I think it's, again, go back to what we open up with, is just sort of being, a team sports people, or, you want to, you're something, but you're part of something bigger than yourself. And that is something that really excites you. And I think that gives you a sense of fulfillment and value. And that's what this job does.
Well, Mike, I can't thank you enough for the interview, the time. It's just, I've had so much fun getting to know you on a whole new level. And if I could say this, I just think your parents would be so proud of you. I think your dad would be so proud. It's just really neat you guys, you're an inspiration for me, and I just am so thankful to have this time with you. Thank you again for joining us. This is Mollie Carmichael, and I hope you enjoyed this series. Please hit like if you liked today's broadcast, and subscribe if you'd like to hear more from the best and the brightest in our industry. Take care, everyone, and I hope you join us again next time.